All right, Mets fans, how you doing? How's it going, everybody? Thank you guys so much for chiming in for the latest live show here in WardyNYM. One of two at minimum on the day. We got the live show and all the latest news and trade rumors right now for the next hour plus. Then I'll get out of here, and then we'll be watching the Mets game. I'll come back after the Mets game, hopefully after a series victory, and we'll discuss that win tonight. Again, fingers crossed, knocking on wood, make sure I'm not jinxing anything. But I hope everyone is having a phenomenal Saturday. I know I am. The weather is beautiful out here in PA where I reside. I'm sure it's nice where you guys are too for the most part. But we have a plethora of topics to discuss today regarding the team in Queens and potential fits for them by this year's trade deadline, if not sooner. And our post-game show last night, Luis Castillo, the biggest pitching domino, did in fact fall as he was dealt from the Cincinnati Reds to the Seattle Mariners. Today, we've seen multiple smaller level moves, trade-wise and extension-wise. The biggest one being Daniel Bard signing a 2-year extension to stay in Colorado. The Rockies still not knowing how to properly operate with 37-year-old that they're locking up till he's 39, 40. Okay, he's having a great year, but definitely could have been a nice trade chip for a team. However, not going to gripe there. We have a lot to deep dive, but before I do anything else, I want to thank everyone so much. My 300-plus live viewers right now. Like I said, we're going to get into a lot of discussion today. We got some Mark Vientos updates for you. We got some JD Martinez, some Wilson Contreras, some Shohei Ohtani updates for you as well, along with a plethora of other topics. But I'm going to do a quick roll call the best I can to everyone in the chat right now. Then we'll go forward, continue smashing that like and subscribe button. Help us get 100 likes for the first short-term goal. Help us get, of course, the 17K subs for the next short-term goal on the channel. We're just a couple hundred away already. You guys have been absolute beasts. Thank you so much. I see Jesse, Felix, Oliver, Buzz Talk. How you doing? Chicken Sandwich, Jason, Tom, Charlene, Patrick, Truth and Lies, Darren, my man, great member on the channel. Oliver, Brad, David, Mets Nation, Elliot, how you doing? Watermelon, Dominic, great member on the channel. Robert, Matthew, great member on the channel. Ethan, Anxious, Julio, how you doing? Kevin, Ed, let's go down the list further. Explosive, Al, Mike, Felix, thank you guys all so much for chiming in. Tracking, great member. Stand Divided, let's see, Robert, Emmanuel, Jordan, all you guys, thank you kindly. I apologize if I miss anyone's name, guys. Like I said, we have a lot to get into. I just want to give a quick roll call. Gotti, how you doing? Appreciate you. You've been a great supporter. And everyone else. Locked On Cubs, how you doing? Thunder, Ernie, all you guys. Thank you. Edward, great member on the channel. Appreciate every single one of you guys. I know everyone loves these trade rumor discussions, as do I, guys. I was very tempted to do a video yesterday and today regarding the Boston Red Sox, but I figured, you know what? With the rumors spiraling as much as they are right now, I don't know how much I wanted to commit to an individual video, while I can rather just do a live show and share my more extended thoughts and trying to cram them all into, not even 10 minutes? So that's what exactly we're going to be doing today, folks. A lot has been out there regarding the team in Queens. But the first thing I want to ask for everyone, Ida, how are you doing? Shout out to you and your husband for watching the show. Steven, great member. Bands, how you doing? Everyone, thank you kindly. But first question that I have for everyone here in the live show, for people watching replay, let me know your thoughts in the comments below as well. What is the one player that you truly hope the Mets land the most? Out of all the players that the Mets have either been reportedly connected to or could potentially be connected to, let me know, spam in the chat right now to my 400-plus viewers and counting. What is the one player that you desperately want to see land in Queens from now upwards to the trade deadline this Tuesday, August 2nd, in which Jacob deGrom will be making his Mets debut? I don't know why I put on my graphic last night that I had him making his debut Monday. I'm an idiot. I don't know the dates right clearly, but yes, August 2nd, it's been official. Jacob deGrom will return to the rotation. It'll be Mad Max and Jake back-to-back in the rotation against the Washington Nationals. Oh, my goodness. That's going to be nuts. I do believe there's a great chance I'll be in attendance for the August 3rd game in D.C. However, I am going to miss Jake's debut, but that is mainly because, again, the 2nd is the trade deadline. So, guys, let me know in the chat right now. I'm seeing the spam. Let me see more of it. What is the one player that you want the most to land in Queens? And then I'll discuss with you what the likelihood or unlikelihood of that is transpiring, along with the plethora of topics that we have here on the graphic, giving you guys all the latest updates on the news and rumor front. Another big thing, guys, the Mets have signed their first selection in the 2022 MLB draft and stud catcher Kevin Parada to right around a $5 million deal. He signed, big deal. Absolutely massive deal. pumped up. I cannot wait to see him in Queens. Should he not be dealt, of course, in the offseason and years going forward. Prado's just 2 to 3 years away from already hitting the bigs. He's a little bit ahead of schedule with that great bat, doing phenomenal things. Was viewed as arguably the best hitter in all of the MLB draft, especially coming from out of college, not high school, but out of college, having a massive year for Georgia Tech. So I'm excited to see Kevin Prada, see what he can bring as a potential tandem with Francisco Alvarez, the Mets stud catcher who's been raking in Syracuse lately. You have to wonder how much more are we going to see Francisco Alvarez in the minors before he makes his MLB debut. The more he kills it in Syracuse, the higher likelihood that we could see him make his debut before this season concludes, guys. A lot of exciting stuff for the team in Queens right now. They won 6-4 yesterday that we saw. Brandon Nimmo, how you doing with that 2-run bomb to right field in the 8th inning? Mets look for the series dub tonight with Cookie Carrasco on the bump as well. But aside from all that, Mets talk that is news-related and just updates on the game tonight and the series overall, let's get into these trade rumors. A lot of you guys are on the same wavelength. A lot of you guys like Martinez. A lot of you guys like Contreras. A lot of you guys love Ohtani. I love Ohtani. There's no denying Ohtani is in class of his own, just like Soto as a guy that I would love in Queens. However, there are reasons why Shohei Ohtani, as much as I would love him on the New York Mets, why, if that's going to happen, the likelihood of it happening by the trade deadline is as slim to none as they can come. And I'm going to be describing here in a second why exactly that is. I have in the past, but I will more because it's been further reported today by the man who just loves to rain on everyone's parade, regardless of if he's right or not. He's just notorious for doing this, that being an Andy Martino. I do see a donation here. Let me address that first. McBleav, thank you so much for the $5 donut. McBleav says, really hope that the trade with the Red Sox goes through. JD would be awesome. Martinez, not Davis. I agree. JDM is what I have the initials there to make it a little bit easier for people to understand. Mets may go from one JD to another JD in the DH position. The differences are drastic, however, in the offensive production and the guaranteed production that you would get from one over the other. McBleav, thank you so much for that donation. Hype in the chat to you guys. But let's talk. All right, let's break it down. We got a plethora of topics, so enough of me ranting for the first, 5 to 7 minutes here in the show. As we know, a couple days ago, this was multiple days ago now, New York Mets GM Billy Epler, who spent years scouting Shohei Ohtani during his time overseas, once he became a free agent and hit the MLB level, the LA Angels did sign Ohtani, and it was all thanks in part to great scouting and really swaying that the likes of Shohei Ohtani with, of course, Billy Epler at the helm as GM for the LA Angels at the time. And, of course, the Mets, like many other teams, have already shown preliminary interest in Shohei Ohtani, who's easily, I would imagine, the best player in baseball right now. I mean, when you're doing Babe Ruth-level things to a higher degree than we've ever seen in MLB's history, when you're not just a stud of a pitcher that could be an ace on numerous teams, but you're a bat that's guaranteed to get you between 35s and 40 bombs a year, it's hard to argue that there are many other players better than Shohei Ohtani in the league. They just cannot compete with what this man can do on the bump and also at the plate every single day offensively. But Shohei Ohtani, as reported by Andy Martino today, and as widely reported, including myself, I never bought into the Ohtani thing unless proven otherwise. Again, anything can happen. I would love Ohtani, but for a guy that, again, is going to be free agent in a year and a half from now, the likelihood of him being dealt at this juncture, this last minute by the deadline, is so slim to none, folks. It's been reported that the Mets do not believe that Ohtani truly is available, at least for a reasonable price. Well, we saw the prospects that the Reds acquired for the Seattle Mariner deal, right? I mean, the Mariners ended up giving up their number 1 prospect, their number 3 prospect, their number 5 prospect, and their number 44 prospect for Luis Castillo for just a stud ace of a pitcher that has 1 more year of control. Unless they lock him up to a long-term extension, which they may very well do just that, the same way that Jose Barrios was extended by the Toronto Blue Jays shortly after he was acquired by them in last year's trade deadline. Unless that happens, I mean, that has all the potential to fall on the flat on the face of Seattle if they cannot lock him up long term. So just imagine that prospect, Paul, as is, and now look at Shohei Ohtani. You think Juan Soto's expensive? Shohei Ohtani is just as expensive, I would have to imagine. I do not expect the Angels to sell right now. I know that this might be heartbreaking to a lot of you guys. Don't get me wrong. I want Ohtani. Everyone does. But the reality is that if Ohtani is going to be dealt, the likelihood is far greater in the offseason at minimum than it is right now by the deadline after it's just been made public over the past 5 days to a week that the Angels are finally starting to listen to offers. Let's keep in mind, folks, that just because a team in the Angels is listening to offers regarding Ohtani, that does not mean that they're even going to really look at these offers and respond. They could just be listening saying, okay, cool. Like, thanks. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Put the phone down. They do nothing. Artie Moreno being one of the biggest schmucks of an owner in all baseball, I know that he is going to be difficult to deal with as is. If you think that the GM for the Angels is 1 point all the strings, I'm telling you that's a far the same from the truth. The same way that everyone gave Billy Epler a bad rap for his first time as GM with the Angels. And don't get me wrong, Epler was anything but perfect. However, he was really strapped with the things that he could do, directly hit with Artie Moreno being the schmuck owner that he is. So if I'm a betting man, I'm not betting by any stretch on the house that Ohtani will be dealt by this year's deadline. I think at minimum it will be this offseason where they start to take it seriously. It'll be completely indicative on the health of Mike Trout. You know, we went from thinking, okay, he just has a day-to-day injury to now looking at Trout could be dealing with a rare back condition that could be an issue for him for the remainder of his career. Trout, who unfortunately over the past year and a half has dealt with some nagging injuries. He was out for a good portion last year, has dealt with injuries this year now. I mean, unfortunately, Mike Trout, who has been the best player that I've ever witnessed in my lifetime and the lifetimes of many, looks like that his career may never be the same health-wise because of this rare back condition. It gives me somewhat similarities to David Wright and how his career spiraled down with his spinal stenosis. It absolutely sucks. It's not the same condition, but its back issues are always tough, especially with a guy like Trout that, again, at this juncture, is not a guy that you're going to be seeing in the center field every single day. He's going to be DHing more, and if Trout becomes more of an issue for the Angels, at that point, it's like, why wouldn't you start to sell sooner than later for Shohei Ohtani? Get as much value as you can out of him, because Ohtani said it at the end of last season, folks. If the Angels do not prove their worth of really trying to push for playoffs, he's walking. He wants to win. He's already fed up. And this is while he still had over 2 years of control on his deal. So just imagine how much more amplified it is now, will continue to be should the Angels not make playoffs. And I think we all know the story by now. That is likely going to happen. They're not going to be in the postseason again this year, as heartbreaking as it is for Angels fans and for all of us baseball lovers that love Ohtani and Trout, the two best players in baseball. But again, it is what it is. Ohtani, we'll see what happens with him, but I'm not going to see him really available via trade until the offseason, in my humble opinion. If you guys disagree, that's perfectly fine. I know we want to throw the farm and give everything for a generational talent on Ohtani, but there's just obvious reasons as to why that most likely will not happen at this juncture. I do see a donation. Let me get to that, folks, and then we'll get to more on the list. The plethora of topics here today. Squarehead, thank you so much for the $5 donation. Hype in the chat to you. Great content, Worry. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Is there any acquisition you would include on an Alvarez or Beatty, excluding Soto and Ohtani? Ooh, probably not. Probably not. Especially Alvarez. There's very little players out there that personally, me as a fan, would be comfortable with the Mets parting with him for a player. You know, I think Ohtani, Soto, those are the guys that are reasonable. That makes sense for it. And you can even make the argument for Ohtani why you shouldn't do that when he's going to be a free agent at the end of next year, if I'm not mistaken, right? So there's obvious reasons as to why Ohtani, you can wait until either he's a free agent or just wait until the offseason at minimum. But outside those guys, there really isn't many guys that are currently popping in my head. And let me know if you guys feel different. But yeah, that's just my quick answer regarding what I would be willing to part with Beatty and Alvarez, especially, or one or the other. Beatty's a little bit of a different discussion. I think if there's one guy out there that I would be willing to part with Brett Beatty, that is Rafael Devers for the Boston Red Sox. And I think that's a great pivot now into our further discussions here on the latest rumors and news regarding the New York Mets, guys. I love Beatty. I don't want to see him go, but if you are going to part with him, someone like Devers that you could lock up long-term would be that exception, in my humble opinion. Not many other guys out there, but he's definitely one of them. Thank you so much again for that donation. Hype in the chat. You continue smashing that like and subscribe on, guys, to my 600 live viewers. You guys are the absolute best. But let's advance forward here in the show, folks. All right, we talked about Shohei Ohtani. We'll go back to when we get to more of the Q&A section later in the show here. And guys, of course, if there's any news that happens while we're live here, please let me know by either tagging me on Twitter or letting me know in the chat. That's all I ask. Just don't do fake news, because I'm not going to entertain it. There's no need to do that. I know fake news is going to be swirling left and right as we get up to the trade deadline when we do our massive live stream on the channel, assuming that the Mets still have more moves to be had by August 2nd. But until then, let's focus now on the man that the Mets have most likely been focusing on heavily to this juncture, and that is Willson Contreras from the Chicago Cubs. Now, it's been notorious that the Mets have liked Willson Contreras for quite a while now. But what I originally discussed Willson Contreras, I want to say a month and a half ago or 2 months ago, I always thought that Contreras' asking price would be so high that it could push the Mets away, regardless on how much they need to upgrade the catching position. And we all know it needs to be upgraded. Even with James McCann looking like he'll return to the Mets next Thursday, I'm sorry, McCann, Nito, it just is not going to get the job done They have the framing. Can they bite the bullet with them in the catching spot? Yes. But the Mets have been so anemic. It's such a glaring hole in their lineup that there's no denying that if you can upgrade that position to a Wilson Contreras degree, this would take this team over the hump, gives more versatility to have a guy at DH/catcher. And if you part with a McCann or a Nito in a deal potentially that has been reportedly discussed with parting with them to go to Chicago in a Wilson Contreras deal, then you have potential to even land one more bat should you wish, because you have that flexibility on the roster still. Of course, with the assumption that you trade Dom Smith, J.D. Davis, Travis Jankowski's no longer on the Mets. He's been DFA'd. Fingers crossed he clears, but if he doesn't, again, I'm wishing the best wherever he lands, folks. But what we do know, it's been further reported today by John Heyman. It really is a nothing burger because it doesn't take a rocket scientist, if you've been following along for a while, folks, that the Mets know that the asking price is high for Wilson Contreras. It has stayed high, however, and it's been reported numerous times from my buddy Michael Marino, among others, that, until those prices start to fall, we're going to see really teams be patient and wait things out. The dominoes are starting to fall via trade right now. Castillo being the big one last night. Some smaller moves today. We saw Edmundo Sosa, the shortstop, get traded to the Phillies. Whoop the F he knew. Nothing crazy there. We saw David Peralta, the longtime D-back, getting traded to Tampa as they add a veteran bat there. But Contreras is someone that the Mets really do want. They're very much in discussion with them still. However, the price is still high. So the Mets, this is a waiting game right now. And it's going to be very interesting to see if the Mets wait out enough and get Contreras' price to drop at least a little bit to something that's more reasonable, so that way they don't have a PCA situation happen, just like last year where you're giving up one or multiple top prospects for someone, even in a package with David Robertson, where you potentially have them both walk in free agency at the end of the year, right? It's high risk, high reward type situation. I love Contreras. I would love him on the Mets, and I do Bleav he is probably one of, if not the most likely bats to land in Queens right now. However, the price is still high, and that is a wait to see type situation if they're going to budge, if things are going to change as the market gets shaken up over the next couple of days leading up to August 2nd. But talking not just about Wilson Contreras, guys, let's get into the Chicago Cubs. Not the Chicago Cubs, but let's talk about the Boston Red Sox, because that has been the discussion as of late over the past, I would say, day or two regarding, right? We saw that the Mets have been scouting yesterday, reportedly from Ken Rosenthal of The Athletic and Fox Sports, that yes, the Mets have been scouting. They were yesterday. They are still right now for both, not just JD Martinez, the phenomenal veteran power bat, who again has struggled a little bit over the past month and a half now. However, I do Bleav a change of scenery will do him great. He's still hitting right around 300 on the year with just under 10 home runs. He's a guy that's raking against lefties, a 360 or so average over 1,000 OPS. He's hitting fine against righties too, right around 280 plus. I mean, JD Martinez, if the Mets want to balance things in kind of a platoon, we've discussed it time and time again, but we'll say it once more. The Mets have Daniel Vogelbach. What did Vogie do yesterday against Sandy Alcantara, no less? Have himself 2 doubles, a walk. I mean, Vogelbach's been absolutely massive for the Mets so far. He has over 600 on base percentage to arrive in Queens. He's 8 for 13 on base-wise in his first 13 play appearances as a New York Met. And I expect to see him rake a little bit more tonight against the right-hander Nick Nieder for the Miami Marlins. But the Mets have 2 righty killers, guys that do really well against righties now, and Vogelbach and Tyler Naquin, who's getting his first start as a New York Met tonight in the corner outfield while Mark Canha rides the bench after a rough day at the plate yesterday. Canha left a lot of guys on base. He joked about it on Twitter after the game. I respect the honesty, and he definitely got to be self-aware in those situations. But if the Mets are trying to balance things, this is the way to do it. JD Martinez is that lefty killer, as is Wilson Contreras. Contreras rakes against lefties as well, over 1,000 OPS against them this year. I would love either of them. But in the assumption that, for instance, the Chicago Cubs do not budge on their price, and the Mets simply do not want to cough up too much viewing what it's worth, then it's been believed from Ken Rosenthal and many others around baseball that a perfect pivot very well could be the Boston Red Sox for JD Martinez, a Red Sox team that simply can't stop losing. They're now a game or so below 500. I mean, I'm sorry, Red Sox fans, if you're not making playoffs this year, unless you go on a miracle run down the stretch. It seems like they're going to be starting to sell. And really, the limbo right now, according to Marino and others that's been reported, is that the Mets are in this waiting game, not just with the Chicago Cubs and their willingness to sell, but also not with the willingness to sell, but the price of the guys are selling. But the Boston Red Sox, and how willing are they going to sell? Chaim Bloom doesn't look like he's been fully committed to selling yet. However, the Mets have already been in some preliminary discussions with the Red Sox for not just JD Martinez, but Christian Vasquez as well. And this is really appealing to me because, look, guys, at the end of the day, I want Contreras, I want Robertson. But I'm not going to gripe in the slice if the Mets find themselves with an awesome package of JD Martinez and Vasquez. Vasquez, who's been the longtime catcher for the Boston Red Sox, is not known for being a good backstop. He's actually one of the far more worse defenders defensively out of the catching position in baseball. However, has a strong bat. He's batting right around between 270 and 280 this year. There's no denying that would be an insane upgrade offensively for the Mets over the James McCanns and the Tomas Nidos of the world, who, for example, I was going over the Mets live today, guys, and I was looking at Mets OPS, for facing right-handed starters this year. Tomas Nido doesn't even have a 400 OPS against right-hand starters this year, folks. That needs to change. Christian Vasquez can truly help you do it. He, in my opinion, would be a perfect pivot if you do not land Willson Contreras. And it does seem like the Mets have the assets to get the job done. That could be potentially a more realistic route, again, if the Chicago Cubs do not budge. So either way, the Mets have a lot of options here right now. There's a lot of suitors for Willson Contreras, as there should be. But when it comes to JD Martinez and Christian Vasquez, I love that deal. I really do. And I would love to see them land in Queens, should it not be, again, Contreras and Robertson. Now, as we've seen as well, it's been reported by Rosenthal right after him saying yesterday that the Mets are scouting these players in Boston, but that Boston is looking for MLB caliber players right now. And I've said it before. I've said this countless times, everybody. Chaim Bloom really likes Dominic Smith. I don't know what the infatuation is with Dominic Smith, not just Chaim Bloom, but the Chicago Cubs. They love Dominic Smith as well. So it feels pretty much inevitable that if the Mets do a deal with either of these teams right now, that it's going to be Dominic Smith going the other way as part of that deal. Now, Dom, what is the most appealing thing about him? It's the fact that he's someone that has years of control. He's not a free agent until after the 2025 season or so. Chaim Bloom, let's not forget his time with the Tampa Bay Rays. What are the Rays known for? They are known for being a team that, again, finds diamonds in the rough, gets the best out of them with guys years of control or veterans that they just help rekindle what they once were. Dom can bring that lefty bat, maybe bring his power back in Boston, in Fenway. And I know that Chaim really likes him. So, again, if a deal happens there, expect someone like Dom Smith 1,000% to be part of the deal. But, I mean, I would even go as far to say is the Mets really just want to upgrade the catching position, but maybe aren't able to swing with JD Martinez, and maybe they want to focus on a bat elsewhere. Not saying it's going to happen, but I don't think it's outlandish to say that the Mets could do a deal where they just trade Dom Smith for Christian Vasquez. Vasquez is a free agent at the end of the year. He's a penny rental. They get Dom, who has multiple years of control still. I don't think that's a terrible swap idea. And maybe they throw in one little, maybe, I don't know, top 15, top 20 prospect along with. I don't think that's an outlandish thing to make right now. I got to be honest with you. So that's just my opinion. I definitely want to know what yours opinion is as well, folks, in the chat right now. But the Mets have options, and I love that. And one man that has been causing a lot of stir just over the past hour that we have discussed is Mark Vientos, one of the Mets' top prospects right now, playing at DH, first base, third base, corner outfield. He's been thrown in there. I mean, he's mainly a first base, third base, DH guy. He's been playing a lot of DH as of late for the Mets. There's been reports that the Mets are even willing to bring up Mark Vientos as a fallback option should they not land a big bat. Now, my humble opinion, I'm not buying that nonsense for one bit. I think, if anything, this might be a little bit of a leverage game, right? You bring this out to the media. You say, hey, we have Mark Vientos, Chicago Cubs, Boston Red Sox. If you're not going to deal with us, that's fine. We have an internal option. So don't waste our time. We want to make a deal happen. Let's make something happen. Let's move forward in negotiations. And I also know that what's been reported is that Mark Vientos' name has been discussed with the Boston Red Sox. He has also been, okay, there is a report going out. So hold on, folks. Bear with me. Hold on, everybody. Hold on. Okay, guys, so this was just reported by Kevin Ace. Shout out to Thomas for letting me know in the chat right now. Kevin Ace is one of the main reporters for the San Diego Padres. He just reported the following, then we'll get back to what I was discussing on Mark Vientos and all that stuff. The Padres have a lot of things going on right now. Juan Soto, Willson Contreras among them. Maybe 8 or 9 more things. Someone just said treating Eric Hosmer is not one of those things. Okay, so look, we know that Willson Contreras has been tagged to the Padres for easily the past couple weeks. Those are one of the multiple teams that have shown interest in the Padres as well. Is that going to amount to anything? Are the winners actually going to be the Padres in the end for Willson Contreras in this scenario, especially where they don't land Juan Soto? I think if Soto does not get dealt or does not land in San Diego, they're going to probably push heavy after Willson Contreras. That makes a lot of sense. So that, again, that's a fluent situation. We will see what happens there. I'm not saying that the Mets are guaranteed to land Willson Contreras. I'm not even saying that they're the favorites. However, I do know that, like the Padres, the Mets really like Willson Contreras. However, they also like what the Boston Red Sox currently have to offer in the likes of JD Martinez and Christian Vasquez. Let me address a donation quick first, guys, and then we'll advance forward here in the show. Thank you so much, everyone chiming in. I really appreciate that. Yoshima, shout out to you for graduating. I saw your tweet on Twitter. That's awesome. Feeling it now, Mr. Krabs. Give me trades now. Billy Big Bucks. Love to see that. Yoshima, thank you so much for the donation. Hype in the chat to you. Great member on the channel. But, guys, let's talk about, let's see. Rory had a fake Bryce Harper Nats jersey on smoking a Marlboro pack. Jay, what are you smoking? My goodness gracious. Bryce Harper? Who in God's name likes Bryce Harper here right now? Jesus. Oh, like, what are you, a plant to come in here and talk smack? If so, you're doing a terrible job at it. At least know what the hell you're talking about. My goodness gracious. Okay, but getting back to Mark Vientos, everybody. Vientos, who's been raking in Syracuse, right, has just under 20 bombs on the year. He's not in the lineup right now for the Syracuse Mets tonight. Now, I don't know if that just means it's a day off. I don't know if that they're doing this precautionary because he is in trade talks as we speak. What I do know, again, is that he has been discussing preliminary discussions with the Boston Red Sox. I know the Chicago Cubs would like someone like Vientos as well. And I am curious, everyone in the chat right now, how do you personally feel? Would you guys be okay with Vientos parted with in a package deal that either lands A, Contreras and Robertson, or B, Vasquez and JDM? The connection between both these deals, folks, you're acquiring rentals. That is always the biggest risk, in my opinion, when you do moves like this, guys. This is something where it sucks to give up top prospects. You are landing big bats, big acquisitions that can help you now, but there is a strong chance that they could walk in the free agent market right after the year. So I'm curious to everybody right now on the Mark Vientos front, talking about him specifically, would you guys be okay with parting with him if he is, say, an X factor in either of those potential package deals? Let me know in the chat right now. I'm genuinely curious what everyone's opinions are. Also, let me know in the comments below if you're watching this on replay, because I know many of you guys will surely be doing that. Let me get out of here. Let's see. We got the spam, the naked bots. Those things are always so random to me. I'm like, yes, surely someone's going to go and click a link from a spam bot saying, oh, so hot and all this stuff. It's so stupid. But yeah, Mark Vientos is really interesting to me. I don't want to see him dealt. However, him and Ronnie Mauricio, if you're viewing top prospects that I would be more comfortable with than others be dealt, those are two that are up there for me. One, Mauricio was a guy, of course, that is blocked for the future. So if you're going to deal him, do it for something right. I want to be opposed to that at the right price. Mark Vientos is a guy that's killing lefty pitching this year, over 1,000 OPS. I want to see Vientos be given a shot. However, I do not want to see Vientos be given a shot because the Mets lose out on the pursuit of a JD Martinez, a Willson Contreras, or even a Trey Mancini that we'll get into here in a second in the show. So he's a guy that is a fallback option for the Mets right now this season. He's a guy that could have potential as a nice, I don't know, maybe a solid DH for them in the next couple of years. I mean, there's great potential there. However, I personally, if you're asking for my honest opinion, I would not be completely upset. Tyler Def clicked one of those links before. No, I haven't, Thomas. I'm not like you. We're similar in a lot of ways. That's not one of them, my friend. But Vientos is someone that, at the right price, I think you could be willing to part with. I think he's a guy that doesn't have much defensive upside. We know that. He is viewed best as a DH. Honestly, gives me a lot of JD vibes on the Mets, that being in JD Davis. I mean, they aren't far off. It's just a matter of, if the Mets are going to part with him, make sure you're doing it for something significant. I do not want to see Vientos trade for something to the likes of just a really stud reliever. Even that would make me feel uncomfortable, because that reliever could just maybe have at most one more year of control. So it's a balancing act that the Mets are trying to do right now, and I don't want to see him go. However, I think that for someone like him and for someone like Ryan Mauricio, there is a price for them. So that's a wait and see. I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with the likes of the Mets and their prospect pool, and what they're going to be willing and not willing to part with as we get closer. Alvarez a bigger bust than Joey Bart. That is absolutely adorable. Alvarez is 20 years old, is already in AAA. I would be that depressed if I were you too, if I didn't have Francisco Alvarez on my farm. Keep talking shit, Tony. The only thing that you got going is a DUI in your name. It's clearly there's someone that isn't fully aware of what's going on in baseball right now, and you are surely one of them. But advancing forward, guys, let's talk about Trey Mancini for a minute before we get to some questions, shall we? Now, Trey, it looked like just a couple days ago that Trey Mancini was going to find himself in a New York Mets uniform. And, there was a lot of fake accounts saying that, a deal was imminent. I wasn't buying that shit for a second. I know that talks were advancing with the Baltimore Orioles. It was reported just over the past week that the Mets did have a focus on the likes of Trey Mancini and potentially one of a Jorge Lopez or the likes of a Dylan Tate. Either one of them would surely get the job done for the Mets. Maybe it wouldn't be the prettiest name. It's not my favorite trade package option out there offensively. And I do think that the likelihood of that has actually slimmed down a bit just because the Mets acquired Tyler Naquin, who can be that fourth outfielder for the Mets. One of the biggest appeals by Trey Mancini isn't just him being a solid bat, but that he has that versatility that if you really need to throw him in the corner, you can, and say right field. However, Naquin takes that away. Naquin comes in now, a guy that has a right around an 836 OPS against right-hand starting pitchers, and he's going to come in, probably start 1 of 3 games at minimum for the time being until more moves come, because Mark Canha isn't starting every day. He starts like every 2 or 3 games, right? Based on matchups. Jeff McNeil is not going to play in left field much, if at all, anymore for the remainder of the year. They want McNeil staying at second. That way you have a nice platoon between Escobar and Guillorme and can base things better on matchups. But Mancini, while he seemed like a really strong fit, I genuinely do not know what the likelihood of Trey Mancini landing in Queens is at this juncture. A lot has changed. That's the rumor mill. They go crazy left and right. There's something that do not stay consistent. One night, like we're talking now, the Mets, it feels like a feasible option with the Cubs, with the Boston Red Sox. Who knows tomorrow? Maybe we're going to find out something completely different, if not later tonight, after being live here. So it's fun following these things, don't get me wrong, but it just shows you that the rumors, they're going to be vast. They're going to be wide. Mets and Billy Epler, Steve Cohen, everyone involved will continue to weigh all options necessary until they have themselves in a spot where they feel comfortable, that the price is right, the market is in their favor, where it's at minimum a win-win trade. The Mets are not going to do their deal. I would imagine that they won't, or it's a lopsided deal where it can only hurt them far more than the other team, right? So I'm excited to see what they're going to do. Personally, my opinion, I want Wilson Contreras, I want David Robertson. However, I think it's a 1A, 1B situation. If that's too high, get me a JD Martinez. Get me a Christian Vasquez as long as Chaim Bloom is willing to sell. Now's the time to do it. The Red Sox continue to lose, folks. I'm sorry. In that stacked AL East, and with the playoff situation looking how it is right now, the Red Sox is not impossible for them to make playoffs, folks, but they are quickly building themselves a hole. The Seattle Mariners look like a lock to make it in that wild card, 1 of 3 now. I don't think they're going to pass the Astros for first in the division. However, if I'm a betting man, I do think the Mariners will make the playoffs this year for the first time since 2001. So playoffs are not in the Red Sox favor after having a strong summer early on. They've really gotten hit hard with injuries and just not faring well against competent teams above 500. They're proving more and more the team that they were to start the year. And for all those reasons, the Red Sox should sell. I expect them to sell. It really just is a matter of to what degree. And I understand, I see in the chat that Vasquez is a defensive downgrade. I'm aware. But guys, Mets have had strong defense all along. What have they not had at the catching position all year long? It's offense. Okay, and at some point, it doesn't hurt to have a guy that's raking right now 270, 280. It doesn't hurt to have Wilson Contreras, who has far more big pop in his bat and can give you a nice balance. Contreras has not hit well over the past month. However, just a slump does not change the potential impact a guy can have post-deadline. We've seen it with Yoenis Cespedes. We've seen it with many other players in the past. Daniel Vogelbach, I mean, he's been a godsend for the Mets. He's already done better consistently, it feels like, than what we've seen from Dom Smith and J.D. Davis on an everyday basis at the DH position. Who knows what we're going to get with Tyler Naquin tonight, who again rakes against right-hand starting pitchers. If he has a big game, then that just further proves what the Mets need right now. They're prioritizing offense. They're going to get the pitching as well. Bullpen, it feels inevitable that the Mets are going to land 1 or 2 relievers at minimum right now. David Robertson did give up a home run and 2-run shot to Wilmer Flores, who kills. Wilmer Flores is a guy that I don't want on the Mets, but I wouldn't gripe if they acquired him. I think that ship has sailed by now. It would have made more sense prior to Naquin, just for the sake of adding a depth bat off the bench that could start every now and then. Flores did hit a bomb off of Robertson yesterday. I don't care. I still want Robertson on this team 1,000%. If you look at the Tigers are the big team that is selling right now, folks. They have a plethora of options. It starts with Andrew Chafin, that the Mets really like the southpaw, that they should have acquired in the offseason as just over 2-year rate on the year. Expected numbers are really nice, too. The numbers that show what truly a pitcher can control on the mound, Andrew Chafin is definitely favorable in that category. Gregory Soto, a flamethrower, has multiple years of control, only 27 years of age for southpaw that can touch in the high 90s. However, he struggles mightily with his control, and that's my biggest concern with someone like Gregory Soto. Wouldn't be a terrible option, but can the Mets work their magic like they did with Adam Ottavino, for instance, in their control that they would do with someone like Soto? They weren't able to do it with Joely Rodriguez. They were not able to do it with the likes of also Chase and Shreve. So if you can't do it with those southpaws, how am I going to be convinced that you can do it with Gregory Soto, even with having more of a dominant arsenal, a repertoire that he's working with? And Michael Fulmer, the former New York Met, another guy, has a nice arsenal. Starter, now switched to reliever over the past couple of years since he dealt with injuries early on in his career with Detroit after having a big rookie year for them, right? Fulmer's another guy, has a nice arsenal, bad walk rate, don't love his control. Andrew Chafin's my guy. I'm on the 3. You have Joe Mansupply from the Arizona Diamondbacks. However, Mansupply has not looked as good as of late over the past couple of weeks as he did, really dominant, not giving up like any runs at all to start the season through the first couple months. There's multiple relievers out there for the Mets. I mean, even if they were desperate for a lefty and just want him for nothing, Jake Diekman from the Boston Red Sox could be feasible, right around a 4 ERA. However, Diekman, I don't know how much of an upgrade that is. I would almost prefer David Pearson between the two for sure. Even with Pearson gaining acclimated to the pen, still just got sent down to AAA because he's more than likely going to start in one of the 2 doubleheader games upcoming next Friday between the Mets and the Braves. So a lot of interesting things going on for the Mets right now. I did hear what the Mets offered for Soto. It didn't seem like it was a bad offer at all. It just seems like the Nationals, Mike Rizzo, are going to be petty and not going to do the deal within the division, which, as much as I may dislike it, it is what it is. Who should I follow on Twitter for Mets trade news? Oh, there's a lot. I would say Michael Marino, Pat Ragazzo. As much as I hate to say Andy Martino, because while Andy's a schmuck, he does have sources. He's not talking out of his ass when he's saying that, the Mets are destined to go in this direction. He's been right in the offseason. Again, Andy has me blocked. He drives me nuts. If he wasn't a clown show, I'd give him far more respect and credibility. But he still has sources, as much as it pains me to say. Those guys are a guy to keep an eye on. Then you have the big ones, Ken Rosenthal, Jeff Passan, John Heyman, even though Heyman is not known for breaking news too often. Joel Sherman does well reporting from the Mets, but he's not a guy that's breaking news constantly either. There's multiple guys out there too, and I'm sure I'm missing more names right now. Wardy, come on now. What do you mean? What do you mean? Come on now, Thomas. What do you mean? Oh, what? What, Thomas? Enlighten me. What do you want me to say? You want you? All right. Check out Thomas on Twitter. Thomas, throw your handle as well if you want Thomas to break some news for you too. Throw your handle in the chat, Thomas. Go ahead. Let's see here. I do see some donations. Let me address them. Then we'll go forward here in the show, folks. Guys, we're going to be going for the next 20 to 30 minutes, guys. We'll be doing an hour show at minimum today, maybe a little bit longer, just to build up upwards to the Mets game today, which I Bleav is around 6:40 p.m. Eastern time. Thomas, thank you so much for the donation. JD Martinez is 0 for 36 after going 1573, 585 OPS. JD Davis had a higher OPS last month. Thomas, the reason why I'm not griping about that personally is I think change of scenery is impactful. I think that this only lowers the value of JD Martinez. I think for the Mets, if you can jump on that opportunity, you do it. Now, JD Martinez comes to the Mets and continues to struggle down the stretch, then hey, that's a risk. It depends on what you give to really say if it's warranted of worth taking. I think JD Martinez can still come in the Mets and a change of scenery and a deep lineup as well. Not saying that Boston doesn't have offense, because they surely do. But coming back in the NL, I think he really could do well with the Mets. And I'm not just saying that from a bias. I think JD Martinez will get out of his slump one way or the other, wherever he lands trade deadline, assuming that the Red Sox and Chaim Bloom do in fact part with them. It's a fair comment, though, and I appreciate that. Thomas C., the other donation, thank you so much for that. At the end of the day, if DeGrom comes back fully healthy and we didn't go all in because of future concepts, it would be a huge letdown. We don't know what tomorrow brings for these players, but what this team deserves is a shot. I agree, and I do want the Mets to go all in. I just don't want them to go all in to the point where they find themselves in a completely lopsided deal. I think that is exactly what Billy Epler and Steve Cohen are trying to avoid here. And I respect that. I have the utmost confidence that the Mets have a big move up their sleeve and that they're going to land another reliever and or bat elsewhere, maybe to a lesser degree, just add more depth. I'm confident what this team's going to do. Jacob deGrom fully healthy, as long as there's no setbacks, as long as he comes in this rotation, pitches 75 pitchers or so on Tuesday at the trade deadline, and then cruises in a rotation down the stretch. Yeah, that makes the Mets going from not just a potential World Series contender to really a bona fide one. And that's not including all the potential deals that they have up their sleeve over the next 24, 48 to 72 plus hours from now. So a lot of decisions for the Mets. They're weighing them all. I assure you the Mets will not come out of this trade deadline empty-handed. To what degree, we will see what moves that they do, but I really do love their chances of making something big happen. Putting all my bias aside, I'm just saying this from what we know, what's been reported. It's abundantly clear that the Mets are trying to do something impactful and do something potentially in a package deal, as we mentioned endlessly, and the Red Sox, the Chicago Cubs, or the Baltimore Orioles. Thank you so much for that donation, Thomas C. I appreciate you. Great supporter on the channel. Michael Mayer, too. Yes, he's also another really strong source as well. Michael does a great job covering all things Mets for Mets Mirage blog. Really, really like Michael Mayer. Oh, tonight's a 6:10 start. Oh, okay. All right, then that just gives me further reasoning to make sure I wrap up the show when I do. Yeah, so we'll probably wrap up the show, I'd say, in the next 20 minutes or so. But yeah, I'm actually glad you guys told me it was a 6:10 start. I was not aware. I'm going to have to change the time of our post-game show tonight. So good thing you guys said that. Hey, Worry, do you think the guys are more reluctant to trade with the Cubs? 1,000%. 1,000%. I think the Mets look back at that PCA trade last year and were not happy that they parted with a top five, their top outfield prospect at the time, and for Javi Baez for like 2 months. And Trevor Williams, who's been good. Don't get me wrong. Trevor has been really, really nice. But yeah, that's my take regarding the Mets and the likes of what we're seeing right now with the Chicago Cubs. I just think that for their sake, they want to make sure that they're not giving up, top prospects for the sake of, guys that maybe aren't going to be worthy enough of an impact. I think that they really, really like, I know that they really, really like, if not love Wilson Contreras. They love David Robertson. I cannot wait for moves to be had here, folks. And regardless on what they do, I'm just excited to see what they are going to do. It's going to be a lot of fun to cover it here on the channel. Like I said, anything and everything Mets, just trade discussion, rumors, and news that happens, we'll be covering it live here on the channel as soon as it happens. I'll be locked in the seat basically from now until the end of August 2nd. We're going to have a massive trade deadline stream, assuming that the Mets don't do all their major moves prior to that. If they do, then I might not do as major of a stream on the deadline. It'll be all indicative on what they do upwards of that point, if at all. But yeah, a lot of stuff's going to happen for the team in Queens. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Sounds good, Dominic. Appreciate you chiming in. Am I going to City anytime soon? Yes, I am. I'm going August 9th with Chris, who's a phenomenal subscriber on the channel. Shout out to Chris. I'll let you guys know more about that. I really do want to go to one of the games against the Braves. I would love to go to that doubleheader. I just don't know how feasible it is right now. So I am eyeing one of those games. My Twitter is at WardyNYM, the same thing that is here on Twitter. Yeah, I'm definitely trying to go to one of the games against the Braves as long as I can swing it. And I will be in, not Citi Field, but I'll be in D.C. at the National Stadium more than likely on August 3rd and seeing potentially the first game for a lot of New York Mets, depending on when they acquire them and who they acquire. I know the Padres are in on Contreras. Guys, the Padres have always been on Contreras. I know it's being tweeted out now, but the Padres have been in on Contreras for literally weeks. This has been going back to a month now that the Padres have been in on Contreras. This is not anything new. It's just being reaffirmed because a lot of people have to reiterate the same thing over and over again. That's just how it is, especially with the rumor season. What is the best way to watch a game if you do not, if I don't have it on regular TV? I would say watch it either through the SNY app, if you can, watch it through MLB TV, if you have a package, or watch it through some type of different streaming service. AJ Puck, I do like. I don't think the Mets are going to trade with the A's right now. I mean, I do like AJ Puck. Don't get me wrong. Puck, potato. I liked him a lot as a lefty option. However, I've heard nothing on his front. So maybe that means it will happen just because the Mets have been sneaky with some moves they have made. However, we did know about the Vogelback deal before it happened. So I'm almost going to go out and say that how we are looking at the Mets leading up to the trade deadline, I feel like we have a far better grasp as to the moves that they will make with previous reporting versus what we saw in the offseason. The Mets did a great job in keeping more things hush-hush in the offseason, both pre- and post-lockout, than what they have done now leading up to the trade deadline. A lot more has been leaked out there prior, regardless on if it actually happens or not, but there's been more substance now than what we saw in the offseason. Mets haven't been able to keep things as tight-lipped as they probably would have liked, because it's really difficult. Trade deadline, everything's going to get leaked out there more than likely. And guys, we're just around 100 likes away from 300 in the live show to my roughly 700 viewers. Thank you guys so much for that. Continue smashing that like and subscribe. And like I said, we are trying to get to 300 plus likes at minimum by the end of the live show. Thank you guys kindly. We're going to be live for another 15 to 20 minutes. I'm going to continue to answer your comments. But to reiterate once more to everyone here in the show at the moment, guys, if you see right here what's been going on with the Mets interested in Shohei Ohtani. But again, it feels unlikely at this juncture that he will be dealt anywhere, and for good reason. Mets focused on Wilson Contreras. The asking price is high. Will it stay high? Will it drop? We will see. Let's go forward. The Mets, they like JD Martinez. They've scouted both him and Christian Vasquez. That's definitely a feasible pivot option for the Mets should Chicago, that being the Cubs, not work out via trade. And then you have Trey Mancini, Jorge Lopez, Dylan Tate. Is that still a feasible option? I genuinely do not have a clue. There's been a little to nothing said on the Mancini option since a couple nights ago, where it looked like that the Mets were getting closer to a deal, that they had a main focus on him. At this juncture, doesn't look like that he has been the main focus. I did see Familia get DFA'd by the Phillies. That's what happened when you've been blowing things constantly, have a 6-year array. I knew that was great for the Mets to not pick him up, and I knew it was great for the Phillies to pick him up. That felt like in my opinion, Dries Familia and Hector Neris have a lot in common, but especially with what Familia has been able to do to start this year. He felt like a perfect Hector Neris replacement. I knew he would be inconsistent, nothing personal against Familia, but that had the writing on the wall from the beginning. To say I'm surprised that he has not panned out is the farthest from the truth. Soto is on the Soto trade of the Rangers. I know that Soto has been targeted by the Rangers. I've not seen that he has been traded to the Rangers, however. Soto has not been dealt yet, unless we see a breaking news report right now. That is not true. I do know that the Rangers were heavily in on Castillo yesterday. I know that they like Soto. I just don't know if they will be able to get a deal done. It feels like the Padres, the Dodgers, and the Cardinals are far more in the running for Soto right now than Texas. I could be wrong, though. Yeah. Soto has not been traded right now. That's for sure. Gets me every time. What, Matt? Did you look at a fake report? Is that what got you? Oh, I don't know what, guys. I have a lot of the fake accounts blocked. So if you guys saw a fake account about Soto and the Rangers, shame on you. You got to click on their account right away. That's what you got to do. I believe Soto will land with the Padres. It's definitely possible. It's definitely possible. No, these people in the chat. Oh, okay. I got you, Matt. That the Cards are the front runners for Soto. Who is that reported by, Kobe? Or is that just educated speculation? Yeah, no, Brandon. I love McGill just as much as the next guy, but there's obvious reasons why the Mets are going to pivot him to the pen. I feel that the Mets probably view that as too much of a risk to try to make him one of their starters right from the jump when he's coming back from a fairly significant injury of multiple months. The Mets want certainties in the rotation, and they want depth in that bullpen. McGill can come in and be huge for them come playoff time in the bullpen as either a multi-inning reliever, a one-inning shutdown guy with his nasty arsenal, and then they evaluate things again in the offseason heading into 2023 on if he is a fit for the rotation, which I'm sure they will do exactly that. I did see Naquin sign some autographs in Miami today. That was awesome. Yep. And we're getting closer to 300 likes in the live show. Thank you guys so much for that. Continue smashing those buttons. Thank you guys all so much in advance. Am I confident with our bullpen situation going to the playoffs? I'm not as confident as I should be. Mets don't have the worst bullpen in the world. Trevor May comes back on Wednesday. However, I know the Mets are going to add more to this bullpen, and when they are done adding, I will be as confident as I could ever be. But who exactly are they going to add? Are they really going to go out and get Robertson? Are they going to go out and get one or multiple relievers from the Texas Rangers? Not Texas Rangers, pardon me. That being in the Detroit Tigers. They have options out there. Are they going to do a package deal with Trey Mancini and a Jorge Lopez or a Dylan Tate or a Perez from Baltimore? That's possible. Mets got their options. Cubs still haven't released their lineup. I wouldn't buy into that too much. Hold on. When did the Cubs play today, folks? Did they play at 7? And what, they haven't released their lineup like an hour prior? Let me see. Guys, the Cubs don't play for another 3 hours. It's okay that they haven't released the lineup yet. It's okay. Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm not. I'm not reading too much into that right now. Don't get ahead of yourself. The writing isn't on the wall. If it is, then he could be Ron Harrison. But trust me, everyone's gonna think like. Let me put it this way: Vientos being out of the lab today can mean just nothing more than the fact that he's getting a day off. Okay, that's reality. I know we love to jump on it and say, "Oh my goodness, he's for certain going to be traded or he's getting called up," but none of that's a guarantee until we see something tell us, that that's actually the case. Devers is on your wish list. Devers is someone I could definitely see the Mets show interest in during the offseason. However, I feel like Boston will do their absolute best to lock Devers up because I feel that between the two, Xander is more likely to walk. Yu Darvish is good. Yeah, he ain't coming to the Mets, though. Not right now, at least. The Cubs are in the West Coast right now. Yes, they are. Yep, they're on a West Coast trip. Sign one long-term, Nimmo or Diaz. Who am I taking? Why not both, Maddie? That's my question. I don't say why the Mets can't lock up both long-term. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna say both. Until I'm told that the Mets cannot do that, I'm saying both. Not gonna pick one over the other. I think there's a 50-50 chance that Soto isn't dealt either. I agree. I 100% agree. Alexi Diaz from Cincinnati. Yes, Edwin's brother. That would be nuts. I would love that. However, given how much they just got for Castillo, not that Diaz is on Castillo level for the Reds. He has multiple years of control, having a big year for them as a rookie reliever. I don't expect the Mets to land Edwin's brother as much as I would like that. Do I think the Mets? Do I think Alvarez is a Mets catcher coming out of spring? Yes, I do. Do I think the Mets would consider bringing back Noah Syndergaard? No. The Yankees are considering Noah after falling out of the Castillo sweepstakes. Now they're in a Montas. However, I don't know if they're going to be able to get that deal with the A's done. I really hope that the A's stand pat and don't deal with the Yanks because they have held back from doing it in the past. Let's see if it happens again. I would love it if the Yanks don't get anything more than a Jose Quintana or a Noah Syndergaard. That would be best case scenario. How's Alvarez going to learn to frame in 6 months? Alvarez knows how to frame, Koala. My goodness gracious. Just because Alvarez isn't a guru defensively the way that McCann and Nito surely have been this year doesn't change the fact that he knows how to frame. I promise you that. And with how the MLB is trending, we are going to 1,000% see robo-umps in the MLB within the next couple of years. If not before the next CBA, then surely after the next CBA. It's already been toyed with in different leagues. 50 likes away from 300. Thank you guys so much for that. Continue smashing that like and subscribe on. Thank you guys all so much in advance. Trying to get 300 by the end of the show as we're breaking down all the latest Mets news and rumors. Thank you guys so much for letting me know that, again, tonight is going to, in fact, be a 6:10 start for the Mets tonight. That is, again, something I was not aware of. I was thinking 6:40. I think I saw it say 6:10 too and just completely pushed it to the side. So I will change the post-game show time to earlier. Probably I'd set it to around 9:30 now. And then whenever the game ends, of course. The shift is leaving starting next season as well. That is correct. But what I will say, because I did see a good comment in here. Hold on, Jordan. If a trade happens during the game, am I going to hop on or a part of? No, if a trade happens during the game, I'm going to hop on right away. If anything of significance happens during the game, that is priority number one over following the game. You know what I mean? So I will jump on it. We will discuss that trade ASAP. And that would be separate from post game. That may warrant there not being a post game tonight. Again, we'll see what happens. So it'll be all indicative on if anything happens for the Mets tonight or not. So that's still wait and see. Dave doesn't want Vientos par with. Okay, I can understand that. Cohen isn't reluctant to do another blockbuster pump. My goodness gracious. This drives me nuts. With all due respect, he shouldn't have to worry about any luxury tax. Guys, it's not a money thing when it's discussing blockbusters. When you talk about trades, it's not a financial thing for the Mets. If it's financial, that's offseason. That's what he can control. He cannot control really much financial aspect other than eating a contract when discussing trades. When it comes down to trades, it comes down to value, and it comes down to the opposing team's preference on who they want to trade with, okay? That Cohen can only do so much when it comes to actually discussing blockbuster trade packages lean up to the deadline. He can share his input. He can tell Billy Upper what he wants us to do. But at the end of the day, even if the Mets do exactly what he wants them to do, there's no guarantee that the opposing team says, hey, we will guarantee we love that deal. We want to do that deal. There's no guarantee for that. So Cohen's hands are a lot more locked now than they are during the offseason. Offseason, they could do whatever, but during the trade deadline, that's a different discussion. Cohen doesn't have nearly as much pull. And if anything, things are not in his favor because there's very few owners out here that even like Steve Cohen. So, and no, there's going to be a post-game show tonight, more than likely, guys. I have it set up. The only reason why there wouldn't be is if there was a trade that happened that had to go, like, make us take the focus away from tonight's game and focus on the trade. So I would imagine that as of now, we're still going to have a post-game show. I have no clue if a trade is going to happen tonight for the Mets or for any other team, big name-wise or not. It's just a wait and see like we've always been saying. Would I be willing to take on half of Rendon's contract if he gets an Ohtani deal done? Probably no, James, just because I know Ohtani's a free agent a year and a half from now. So probably no. I don't think it's worth to take on that contract when you can just wait a little bit longer for him. Feel like Contreras provides more flexibility playing time-wise than JD Martinez would, etc. Yeah, he does provide more flexibility. I agree. He absolutely does. Per the Boston Globe, JD Martinez will be traded by the deadline. I mean, that's good. I feel like that's inevitable too, not just with JD being valuable as a rental, but with him struggling as much as he has the past month and a half. That makes sense. 30 likes away from 300. Looks like we're probably going to hit it right as we're about to wrap up the show. So thank you guys so much. Guys, we're going to be ending the show here in a minute or two. Latest on Joey Lucchesi is that he's rehabbing well. He may return to the Mets before the end of the year. However, I don't imagine he would be on the Mets playoff roster, assuming they make playoffs, right? So Joey Flacco is a guy that if we're going to get an impact from, might be in playoff time or at best, probably the best case scenario will be next season. We'll see, though. Joey is rehabbing really well. Looks like he may return to the Mets before the end of the year. They can get a look at him. And he does have a multi-pitch arsenal now, more than just the fastball and the curve. So that is exciting. Penn Mets, thank you so much for the $10 donation. I like Josh Bell, but I don't believe the Nats would ask for too much. JD Martinez back worries me. I wouldn't be too concerned about JD Martinez's back just because he's a rental. If we're looking to acquire a guy with multiple years of control, I can understand that. But this is Martinez for down the stretch come playoff time. That's what I view with JD Martinez. I think he'd be a big get for the Mets. I love Josh Bell. He's probably my favorite offensive bat option out there. That isn't Juan Soto. However, the Nationals have made it pretty much abundantly clear that they're not going to deal with the Mets. So unless that news changes, I'm not expecting Bell to land in Queens, as much as that may pain me to say. He looks like he's probably going to land with the Astros, if anywhere. Thank you so much for that donation, though, Pet Mets. And thank you guys so much for watching. That's going to wrap up this hour-long show and all the latest trade news, rumors, all that fun stuff, guys. It's going to be a whirlwind next 24, 48, 72-plus hours. No less, we'll be covering anything and everything here on the show per usual. So make sure you guys stay tuned. As of now, I'll be back live later tonight after the Mets hopefully get a series dub tonight with Cookie Carrasco on the bump against these Miami Marlins. Nick Nieder is your right-hand starter in placement of Rogers, who's now on the IL for the Marlins. So the Mets avoid the southpaw and handle Nieder, who they have faced a couple times already over the past year. Excited for the game tonight. Excited for the moves on the horizon for the team in Queens. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll be back later tonight, but until then, have a great rest of your night, day, evening. Whenever you're watching this, folks, as always, let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.